Hey everyone, Matron here, bringing you another StarCraft 2 commentary. This time, another game featuring vileSpanishiwa spawning as the blue Zerg, and his opponent will be NrGHumble spawning as the red Zerg. We are on Shakuras Plateau here, and this is the 1.3 version of Shakuras Plateau, so there are no backdoor rocks down to this hallway with this smiley face, as the rocks have moved a little bit northward here. So you're still going to be able to be safe if you do bust down these rocks and take the backdoor expansion. But we will not have any Terrans busting through our back doors, ending the game quickly with a siege tank marine push. So it looks like both players having a little bit of dialogue here. This is a ladder game. And again, this is 1.3. And I wanted to take a look at vileSpanishiwa's ZVZ. As I mentioned in the last replay, I've been checking out his ZVT and his ZVP a little bit, as a lot of games have been cast with those matchups, but he's just got such an interesting style, and ZVZ can kind of be a zany matchup just because of how mistakes in the early going can really put you behind. Build order can be a huge deal as well, and I want to see how he is able to defend against some of the early build orders that you will see on the high level ladder. Looks like both players might be saving up for some sort of expansion, as Spanishiwa just continues to drone, and we do see him liking to take that 16 hatchery expansion. Both players actually sending out their first scout, so pretty even scout timing. It looks like another drone coming down here to place down this hatchery, and both players getting up pretty equal timings all around here, scouting and hatchery. And it looks like Spanishiwa cutting drones at this point, Humble getting out another drone or two. So both players, I imagine, will be putting up a pool at this point, but they have seen the fast expansion. Spanishiwa getting up his pool just a little bit earlier than Humble's. So Humble going for gas first and then pool. So Spanishiwa's build going to forego gas in the early going up to about 40 food, about 36 drones until both of his mineral patches in the main and natural are fully saturated. And Humble is going to be getting this extractor down, so we will be getting speedlings, and he will be taking map control in the early going, depending on how many speedlings he does make. It looks like Spanishiwa doing the evolution chamber trick, but that's not going to stop Humble from mining gas here. It's just a pixel or two off. If you were sliding it down 1 pixel, it would make the drones have to take a very wide a shortcut, or a long cut, delay around that evolution chamber, and it can delay the mining of that gas. Also, if it's taken down by a queen or early zerglings, it's going to spawn a lot of broodlings, and you can actually focus down a drone or two with those broodlings, so it can pay for itself a little bit and just annoys your opponent. So you see Spanishiwa keeping up the scouting. Back in his base, he does have his natural up, and 2 queens are on the way. 2 queens on the way for Humble as well. So in the early going, not too much of a deviation. We will have Humble starting speed, as I mentioned. He has pulled drones off of gas. So the first 6-pack of Spanishiwa Zerglings pushing out here, and Humble will see this with his Overlord, and he will be responding with a few Zerglings of his own, 4 in fact, as he's already got 2 out. And the number of Zerglings you make really depends on the amount of information you're able to get from your opponent. If he goes a lot of Zerglings, you almost always have to go a lot of Zerglings yourself, unless you're able to get a spine and a block with good queen's position on the bottom of the ramp. And that's something that Spanishiwa tries to do in his ZVZs. Pretty much all of his matchups is make as few Zerglings as possible, as we do see a bit of an encounter here, and Spanishiwa is not going to be focusing down the Zerglings, instead going right for the drones of Humble, and it looks like he was able to get 1 or 2 there. If we check, he has killed 2 workers so far, and Humble at this point just going to be streaming across the field with the Zergling speed about 80% of the way done there, and Spanishiwa has a nice placement on this spine crawler. He's got out 3 queens already. So with these queens and the spine crawler, 4 queens in fact, nice position, going to be blocking the ramp here, as Humble's going to make his way up here. Another spine crawler coming out, and he will not be able to get up into the main. And the queens, you'll notice, have very high energy, so at least 1 transfuse and a second perhaps will be available for Spanishiwa. So if Humble does decide to push in here with some sort of all-in with these Zerglings, he's going to be able to he's going to have to face these queens, another queen in the main, and he's going to have at least 2 transfuses as well. So you see, saying nice block, Spanishiwa, even the little the carrots there. And now it looks like he will be taking his 4 gas. Humble adding his third and fourth gas as well. So both players will be making it up to lair tech shortly. Spanishiwa, the first 100 gas, goes into lair tech, the second 100 goes into Zergling speed, keeping up with his injects now that he does have these 4 queens. And again, using these queens just to block this ramp. Later on, he will use the queens to spread a little bit of creep and send them to any other expansions. Uses these 2 spine crawlers as well. Going to be very good against any sort of early roach or Zergling pressure. You see the nice positioning here. No Zerglings will be able to come down here and harass the bottom of this mineral line, and the spine crawlers can also reach the queens up here by the ramp. So we see Humble at this point does have those speedlings on the field. If we check the income tab, it is actually 46 to 43. So Humble's taken some cues from Spanishiwa, decided that, hey, if you're just going to play it safe and drone up, so am I, and I'm actually going to be a little bit ahead of you. Spanishiwa's lair just a few seconds ahead, but Humble does have the superior drone count at this point. He also has up the roach farm. Roaches, just a few of them out at this point, and the evolution chamber going down for Humble. Spanishiwa's build in the other matchups really relies on upgrades as well. We saw in the last ZVZ he did not go for too many upgrades, and he has foregone any sort of evolution chamber play in the early going here. He does have it down the roach horn that's going to finish right before his lair, so we'll see if he goes for roach speed. Nice spread of overlords for both of these players. And it looks like Humble can be the first player to take a 3rd base. So both players just macroing up here, and I really like this play from Humble. A lot of players will try to go all in against Spanishiwa when they see the lack of Zerglings and defense that he has, but that can be tricky because he has all these queens out and they're pretty good defenders. They got the 175 HP, take quite a bit of time to work through, especially with the Zerglings, as they do have the 1 armor. And then he saves up a lot of energy here for transfuses. So he's got now 4 or 5 transfuses on these queens. So if you try to go all in, it can really backfire on you, and then he will have a huge economy lead and just basically lean on you for the rest of the game. So Humble at this point pushing across with these roaches, they may be able to take down all the speedlings of Spanishiwa. And now pulling back is Humble. He's got this 3rd about to complete, and it looks like Spanishiwa also taking a 3rd, though it is quite far behind the 3rd of Humble. If we check the income counting station, it's 49 to 44. But it looks like Spanishiwa just a little bit ahead on his infestors. He's going to have the pathogen glands finishing in about 40 game seconds, and he's got a few infestors on the way as well. Humble responding with his own pathogen glands, and it looks like that was scouted by this overseer of Spanishiwa, and wow, he's going to get the contaminate on the pathogen glands here, and that can be so huge, as a lot of players like to time out the pathogen glands and the first infestors pretty perfectly. We saw in the NASL the other night the casters did miss the significance of that. If you're able to get a contaminate on the pathogen glands and they do decide to come out with that perfectly timed set of infestors, they will not come out with the 75 energy. And now it looks like Humble going to be moving his defenses to the center of the field here, taking 3 spine crawlers and dropping creep here with these overlords, pushing in here perhaps, not really sure about this. He's going to get a lot of scouting information. Spanishiwa will have these infestors, and he's also pushed forward his spine crawlers. And now we see the roach count of Humble pretty high at this point. He's got 24 roaches compared to the 16 of Spanishiwa, but Spanishiwa taking a lot of free roaches here. But he's going to have to deal with these spine crawlers. Now the roach is going to be easily taking care of these Zerglings. And if he's able to engage late here, no, some great fungals going down for Spanishiwa. He needs to really keep this up, as he does not have as many roaches at this point. And the roaches of Humble also 1-0, Spanishiwa 0-0. And the spine crawler doing very nice damage here already with 2 kills. But again, doing bonus damage to the armored roaches. And it looks like Humble will be able to fend this off. Spanishiwa, not really sure about those fungals. He really needed to be perfect with them, as we see another one going off, killing a number of roaches there. Humble finally pushing out, and he will have the pathogen glands finishing, getting a nice fungal on the roaches of Spanishiwa. But at this point, Spanishiwa going to have to pull back. He's got these burrowed infestors midfield, burrowing roaches, so they will heal up. And if we check the army counting station, it is 1650 to 1375, pretty even. Back in the harvester count, it is 54 to 50. Neither player really fully saturated on their 3rd at this point. Spanishiwa doing a decent job spreading creep tumors in the center. Looks like Humble going to be going for some overlord creep instead. That's pretty safe play, as the overlords, not much anti-air in ZVZ at this point. Sometimes Zergs would be going for hydras, but infestors are just so strong. Infestors have become the lair choice tech. It looks like Humble Humble getting out his burrow tech as well as a few more infestors, and the hive on the way for Spanishiwa. This is something he wants to get to as soon as possible, as he can get out ultras, sometimes broodlords as well, but really needs to get this third saturated. We see he does have nice saturation on the gas, so perhaps both players just using the third for gas at this point. It looks like a decent amount of damage was done by the bird infestors up here. Actually missed that on the main screen, so check the bottom right for that damage. And now doing a bit of scouting is Spanishiwa at the Zerglings. Going to see a ton of infestors. But again, the Ultralisk, once you do get them out, they're pretty infestor proof, as the fungal growth does not stop them. And even though it does bonus damage against the armored Ultralisk just have so much health. Now it looks like Spanishiwa may be moving into position here to get some fungals off. The infestors are actually armored units, so if you fungal them 2 or 3 times, you can take down huge bunches of them. But it looks like there is an Overseer out, and if fungal does go down on those infestors, but unless he can get a second one, he's not going to be able to do too much. And it looks like he did get a second, so 3 infestors going down at the price of 1 infestor. So Spanishiwa continues to use a little trickery here, doing decent amounts of damage. If we check the income counting station, still 55 to 49. So Humble does have the advantage, getting a nice contaminate there on the third of Spanishiwa. And if he moves into the second here, he's going to be seeing this Ultralisk Cavern almost halfway done. And he could actually get another contaminate down. It looks like he's queued up to do just that. The Queen of Spanishiwa wants to take this down, so he can't get a third up on the main. But again, no upgrades for Spanishiwa at this point, as we see a little scoot and shoot from this Queen. We'll be taking down this Overseer. One more shot, there it goes. And the Ultralisk Cavern almost done. Looks like Spanishiwa has a lot of saved resources. He's got this middle pretty well defended. He's got the 2 spine crawlers. He's got an Overseer, so no sort of burrow play. He's got a nice spread on his roaches and his infestors. So infestors coming in with fungal growth will not be very effective. See Humble doing his best to spread his units as well. 3,900 to 3,400 at this point. Spanishiwa will be maxed shortly. He's got 7 ultras on the way. Aspire coming out, and as well as the hive tech for Humble. So he's a little bit late, but this is normal hive timing in a lot of matchups for Zerg. But Spanishiwa just rushes that hive out so quickly, and he is very well defended as well, using those infestors kind of to not wrestle back map control so much as do a lot of harassment, really keep his opponent on his back foot there. Back heel, back foot, that's one thing that casters tend to say, and I think sometimes they mix it up a little bit. So gonna try to avoid saying that, just don't want to say it wrong. As we see the Queens, all 4 of them now moving into position for Spanishiwa. Got a lot of energy so they can spread creep. Humble will be checking this 4th, and it looks like his 4th is again just a little bit ahead of Spanishiwa. So Humble's economy all game has been very good, but Spanishiwa coming out these ultras now at 200, Humble just up to 148. If we check the army counting station, the army supply is 135 to just 92, so Spanishiwa very far ahead, and if he pushes forward with these Ultralisks, it could be huge. Looks like he's going to do just that. We do see a Greater Spire as well as Corruptors on the way, but I'm not sure that it's going to be in time, as these Ultralisks, all 8 of them moving across the field. Again, they do not have any upgrades. The chitinous plating about to finish, but a lot of infestors here with maxed out energy for Humble. He's getting great fungals down on these roaches. He can't quite fungal the Ultras to death, but the roaches of Spanishiwa very low. If we check out the count here, it looks like the roaches of Spanishiwa quite low. A decent concave working out here for Humble, dropping a number of infested Terran as well, and it looks like Humble is going to actually, wow, clean that up. I'm not sure where all those infestors went. Wow, so Spanishiwa down to 116, trying to remax with Ultralisks. And I think the infestors of Spanishiwa were a little bit late to the party. They did not get good fungals down in the early going, and Humble just beat him to the punch with nice fungals there. Took down all the roaches of Spanishiwa, and without the roach support, the Ultras went down to the spine crawlers as well as the roaches of Humble. So wow, usually that push works, the 200 push for Spanishiwa, but Humble is able to fend it off and now has a better economy, 60 to 54. He's on these 4 bases. He's got all 4 of his gas, or all 8 of his gas now working off these 4 bases. Looks like a Zergling run by coming in, trying to do a bit of economic damage, as Spanishiwa does feel he's behind. If he's able to get a a few drones here. He could even it up quite a bit. Roaches pouring in for Humble. Going to try to clean this up. And let's check out how many went down. It looks like about 10 or 15 harvesters went down for Humble. So Spanishiwa getting right back into it in terms of the economy game. He's actually killed 29 workers total. So decent amount of harassment done. And at the same time, Humble tried to get a few bird infestors in, but Spanishiwa was able to shut that down. It looks like one infestor has hit up here. And Spanishiwa doing his best to find it. But at this point, he is 143 to 137. We check out the army. It is 81 supply to 82. And back in the production tab, it looks like we have Broodlords on the way for Humble. So Broodlord's going to do pretty well against the Ultralisks. Again, the chitinous plating has finished, so they have 3 armor now. But again, no upgrades coming out in this ZVZ from Spanishiwa, something he really stresses in the other matchups. And now one Broodlord going to be so annoying. We do see Spanishiwa coming out some Corruptors, so that's going to be perfect counter against these armored biological massive Broodlords. But the Broodlord's pushing in here and breaking this bit of line. He did have the Spine Crawlers down, did Spanishiwa, and doing as much damage as he can. But without a massive number of Broodlords, he's not going to be able to do too much, picking off a free Infestor. And now the Broodlord's coming in here, all 4 of them. But I'm not sure Humble has any Corruptors to cover the sky here. So Spanishiwa going to be able to do damage against these Broodlords. Humble going to try to focus down the drones as well as the Hatcher here, the 3rd for Spanishiwa. And slowly but surely, the Corruptors are working on these Broodlords, taking them down. And it looks like Spanishiwa may be able to counter here. I'm not really sure what else he can do. In the south here, we have another 2 Broodlords working on the hatchery, the 4th for Spanishiwa. So Spanishiwa losing his 3rd there, and may lose this 4th as well. All he can really do is try to counter. Not much else on the field for Humble at this point. He's just got these Broodlords, and once the Corruptors clean those up, a counterattack by Spanishiwa could be huge, but he's already lost his 3rd and his 4th. If we check out the income counting station, 58 to 46, but how many mining bases do we have? Spanishiwa just on this natural, just a little bit of mining there, while Humble's pretty healthy with the 3rd, the 4th, and the natural actually has great saturation or great numbers of minerals left compared to Spanishiwa as well. 2 Broodlords are able to retreat back, and now Spanishiwa sort of has to go all in and attack here. If we check the unit counting station, is 15 Corruptors and 10 Ultralisks against the 3 Broodlords. A number of Roaches as well as Infestors for both players, 6 on each side. More Broodlords coming out for Humble, but he really needs to get out some Corruptors to try to wrestle back map control or air control from Spanishiwa. So Spanishiwa pushing out with the Ultras as well as the Corruptors. A Greater Spire on the way for him as well. Humble trying to push into position, but a great fungal by Spanishiwa on these Infestors, and Humble actually using some Infested Terran, trying to take down these Corruptors before they can take down the number of Broodlords he has. Moving in here again with an Infestor and getting down a fungal growth on the Corruptors. Again, they are armored, so they take a lot of damage from that fungal, but they have 200 health as they are just ripping apart all of these Broodlords. And the Corruptors are coming in a little bit late from Humble here, so it looks like Spanishiwa will have map control, as the Ultras are just ripping apart all the ground forces of Humble. Humble burrowing with his Roaches, but an Overseer here for Spanishiwa is going to be able to shed some light on the situation, and those Ultras just doing huge damage against the ground forces of Humble. Humble does not have enough Corruptors to take on the Corruptors of Spanishiwa. See, some of them are quite low, and now the Ultras are just burrowing or barreling through this 3rd, doing a ton of damage against the static defense Spine Crawlers. On the way, we have Broodlords coming out for Spanishiwa as well. Some Corruptors coming out for Humble. So, actually, if Spanishiwa does not have these Corruptors to protect his Broodlords, the Corruptors of Humble could take them down. But it looks like Spanishiwa just rolling through the bases of Humble, already taken down now his 5th. He hasn't actually taken down the hatchery here, so more mining going on for Humble at this point. He doesn't have an economy, and Spanishiwa just doing long distance mining, very low, and just 300 minerals per minute. He cannot really afford to rebuild that hatchery at his 3rd. Now Spanishiwa moving in here with all these Ultras. They're just, they're ripping apart. There's nothing on the field that can go against them. Humble doing his best to fend off these Broodlords with the few Corruptors he has, but just not a lot of them. He really needs to focus fire. The Corruptors rallied in here. They need to get on these Broodlords, wrestle back some air control, and then convert to Broodlords and try to take down these Ultras. So it looks like the Broodlords will be cleaned up for Spanishiwa here by the Corruptors, and Spanishiwa doesn't really have enough money to come out with more Corruptors of his own. So losing the air control here, as all the Broodlords will go down. Moving into the third, going to try to focus down this hatchery. Moving in with some infestors as well, so if he can get some fungal growths out on the Corruptors of Humble, he could perhaps take back map control. But again, I love the sound of these Ultras as they go to work on all these buildings. Corruptors again moving in here, focusing down the Overseers for Spanishiwa. And now it looks like we have Broodlords on the way for Humble. He's got 2, and I think a few more, 3 more in production. Spanishiwa going to try to take down all the hatcheries for Humble at this point, as Humble pulled off a number of drones from that third, and Spanishiwa just ripping apart. And it looks like this is going to be GG for Humble. Not really sure what he can do, as we see corruption going down on a number of the Ultras. Looks pretty cool there. And Broodlords doing their best to try to focus down these Ultras, and more Broodlords on the way. Again, Humble did have the economy, so Spanishiwa not going to be able to make many more units. Humble coming out with some Broodlords, and it looks like they're focusing down the Broodlings here. They really need to work and find the remaining buildings of Humble. Looks like Humble's got his main still up. And Spanishiwa's kind of been going back and forth between the natural, the third, the fourth, and it looks like actually some of these Ultras will go down. A 27 kill Ultra about to die if it does not focus down, down to 8 HP. So Spanishiwa doing his best with all these Ultras. He's got 9 of them now, but some of them are actually quite low. So if the Broodlords are able to move into position here for Humble, he could actually defend a little bit. And it looks like Broodlords moving across the field. We may see a bit of a base trade. The Corruptors focusing down Overlords. So base trade situation, we got the Ultras working against the main of Humble. And then we've got the Broodlords very slow, trying to make their way over here. They really need to focus down buildings only. They can't waste time on these units. He needs to get right on these buildings. Spanishiwa doesn't have much left. He's just got his main and his natural. So Humble needs to get on this, as the Ultras are just working through his main at this point. He's actually got a hatchery building in the northern position, as well as a lot of extractors around the field as well. So Spanishiwa's got some very high kill Ultras, 37, 33. They are all metamorphs. We've got one Broodlord trying to work down these Ultras. And again, if the Ultras get distracted by these Broodlings instead of working on buildings, could really work out for Humble. But I'm not sure if this one Broodlord, it's very slow as it tries to make its way. It's going to have to make its way to the north again. And Spanishiwa has found this hatchery. He's got a number of infested Terran coming in here. Meanwhile, over at Spanishiwa's space, it looks like his natural about to go down. He doesn't have much in the way of buildings. He's got a greater spire here. He's got an extractor down here in the south. He's also got an extractor. I imagine the Broodlord's going to be quite slow to find all that, as that hatchery in the north goes down for Humble. As we see him kind of friendly rage here a little bit, perhaps. Maybe not so friendly. He's got one extractor making here, but without any hatcheries. Spanishiwa is going to be able to see this. And moving into position with these Ultras. The Ultras focusing down the infestors of Humble. It looks like the Broodlord's just a little too slow to defend against these Ultras. And Humble, without a GG, leaves there. And wow, Spanishiwa did huge amounts of damage with these Ultras. Check out the kill count: 40, 34, 33, 29, 44. 35 and 17, so there's like 200 kills on these Ultras, and a few of them had died as well, with very high kill counts. So he actually had double tier 3. He had those Broodlords and Ultras. I really felt like the key there for Spanishiwa in the late game was getting out those Corruptors. He was able to take down the initial set of Broodlords for Humble, and then he was able to go to town with those Ultras. Humble eventually got out enough Corruptors, and I think Spanishiwa actually made a bit of a mistake going for Broodlords himself. Really no reason for that, as the Ultras were going to be able to do fine on their own. And once he made Broodlords, then Humble's able to come back and take down all the Broodlords with Corruptors of his own, and then eventually get some more Broodlords. But Broodlords against Ultras, the Ultras are just so much faster, especially with creep on the majority of the map in a ZVZ. and the Broodlords were not able to do enough damage. They were not able to defend or attack quickly enough, as Spanishiwa is just a lot more mobile with those Ultras. So really interesting, long, almost base trade situation, ZVZ here, between vileSpanishiwa and NrGHumble. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you are looking for more StarCraft action, Spanishiwa, MLG, and many others, check out my channel, Matron StarCraft at youtube.com. Also, if you're looking for coaching at any level, check me out as well on my channel. On the left-hand side, I've got some details there. Always looking for new students. A lot of fun coaching. So thanks for watching this one. Take care.